Like the reason I did my PhD was because I heard about people that had used a certain dietary protocol and their symptoms of rheumatoid arthritis had really like diminished, and some of them were able to come off medication. And yet this protocol, it's the autoimmune diet protocol, had never been tested. And I thought to myself, like I'm smart enough. I've got the background, I've got the facility, I've got the support. If somebody else isn't going to do this study, like I should take this on because it would be a contribution. It would make a difference in the planet. I want to be able to leave this world thinking I've left something behind that is useful for people.
Welcome to Landmark Difference Makers, where we interview people making a remarkable difference around the world. Get ready to be inspired. Let's jump in.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Landmark Difference Makers. I'm here with Christine McCormick Harris. And today I'm very excited about who we're going to be interviewing. But I have a question. Christine, do you ever think about getting old?
Oh my goodness, Seamus. I do try not to. However, it seems that every morning when I wake up, it is the first thing as my joints ache. Getting out of bed.
Yeah, I have a whole thing where I need to move around slowly for about 10 minutes before I know that I'm not going to tweak my back
I know,
as I start the day.
Most embarrassing thing ever. What happened? I got out of bed. End of story.
Yes. Well, I'm really excited about our interview subject. It's Julianne Taylor. She's on a mission to help people not just live longer, but live stronger, healthier, more vibrant lives well into their later years. And she's a registered nutritionist and a powerlifter and a PhD candidate, working on that right now. And she's really challenging the outdated beliefs about aging and showing that strength and vitality can increase over time. And her work centers on extending people's health span. That's the number of years that we live free from disease and limitation through evidence-based fitness, food, and mindset. And I'm very excited about this because I think she really is somebody who is redefining aging. And here she is. Julianne, welcome.
Hi. Thanks. Hi.
Julianne, you've gotten a little bit of press recently in your home country. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if you could just say a little bit about that article and, what piqued the interest of the press and them wanting to interview you.
The main thing was in 2023, I competed in world powerlifting, IPF world powerlifting as a master's athlete. I'm 65. I was 64 then. And I won my categories. So there are different categories. There's age categories, 60 to 69, and weight categories and under 52 kilos. So I'm a lot smaller than I look on screen. I competed in that. I have been competing since 2019 and had just persistently and consistently gone to the gym and got stronger and stronger throughout my 60s, and to the point where I won that year. And a journalist that I know was like, we need to write about you. When can we do that? So that's kind of how it came about. It's like, it's kind of really inspiring that you are so strong and you're getting stronger and you're not getting any younger. So and also brain wise, like I like to keep challenging myself. It's like if you stop moving and working, things go backwards. So I'm continuing to work my brain and I'm continuing to work my body. And so that's what she was particularly interested in.
Well, that's a really interesting thing that you just said. If you're not working things, they tend to go backwards. There's
Hmm.
a point in life where that's just a biological fact. When,
Hmm.
when does that generally start for people?
Going backwards.
Well, in other words, you have to work to maintain. You
Yeah.
can't count on that. You'll be as strong tomorrow as you were yesterday without tending to it.
I think it's something you always have to tend to. And the older you get, the harder it gets. It's like my memory capacity isn't as good as it was 20 years ago. I can't hold, and I was speaking to a friend about this. We can't juggle as much in our brain as we used to. We can't juggle as many things and as many concepts. And um, it's almost like the car's getting older and we have to put more effort into it, not less. And that's the reality. You
Yeah.
can't think, oh, I can just start taking it easy. No, you can't. If you want to keep your mind and your body strong, you actually have to up the effort. And it's harder to up the effort because you feel less like upping the effort as you get older.
Hmm.
So
One of
yeah,
the,
this constant juggle.
yeah, one of the things that was mentioned in the article was this idea of health span,
Hmm.
and that's distinct from lifespan. And I'm wondering if you
Mm,
could just, share with us a little bit about the difference between those two, and why that term health span is becoming is being used increasingly.
mm. So health span is continuing to live highly at a highly functional level. So, you can run up the stairs, you can carry your grocery bags, you can play with the grandkids or, run with the dog, or it's and the ability to do mental and physical things well as you age. Whereas health span doesn't, it's got nothing to do with how well you age. It's just got to do with how old you get. So you could be extremely frail. Um, your bones could be weak. Your muscles could be weak. You lose cognitive ability in your brain. You may um, have body composition changes, less muscle, more fat, metabolic issues,
I think
like
you
blood
flipped the
pressure,
I,
etc.
I think you flipped the terms there. Lifespan is just literally how long you live, where
Yeah, health
the
span is how well you live.
gotcha. Um,
Yeah.
well, one of the things that I marvel at, I
Mhm.
was this came up on a podcast I was listening to recently, that 100 years ago, the average human being, the average lifespan of a human being around the world was under 40 years.
Mm,
And today, globally, across the developed and developing world, it's well past 70. And uh, I don't want to assume what accounts for that. I know that, infant mortality, the reduction in infant mortality has a lot to do with that, but
mm,
there are just people who are living longer, and more people are living longer. And countries like Japan are uh, majority of the people in the country will soon be over the age of 50.
mm.
Um, what accounts for that?
So it's when you're looking at that, you're looking at the average age of
Hmm.
people. It doesn't tell you anything about are there outliers who live a long time. It just says, okay, well, a lot more people die when they're younger. It doesn't mean that people don't necessarily live till they're old. It's just that we have our modern healthcare system has got a huge amount to do with that. Like up until recently, we'd obliterated things like measles and a whole lot of things a whole lot of childhood diseases that used to kill kids. Half of the babies used to die in their first 5 years of life. Mothers used to die while they were giving birth. People died of infections, people died of broken limbs. So our healthcare has got a lot to do with fixing people and stopping us dying from what used to be common diseases. So we have the average lifespan has gotten longer and longer and longer. But on the other hand, the people that live longer and longer aren't necessarily healthy when they get to those older age groups. But we're
And
just better at keeping people alive, basically.
yeah, yeah. Well, I think that that's a really important distinction to draw. Medicine and the biochemistry of medicine can do a lot.
Hmm.
You know, I mean, I've known people that have managed to keep going just because of medicine, not because they
Absolutely.
were actually taking care of themselves.
Hmm.
Um, what are the things that you think really go into having health span personally? Like, you know, somebody listening to this is like all of us, you know, wants to have
Yeah.
a quality of life.
Yeah.
What are the three areas, well, I believe it's three areas you mentioned that really are key to focus on?
Hmm. So things that we do know is like nutrition makes a difference, but also your metabolic health and your bone and muscle. So what people don't underappreciate is the role of strength in aging. If you are strong, you're less likely to die of any disease when you get old. So I would
Well,
say
so
strength is probably one of the most important things as as we
now,
age.
just I mean, uh, I I've heard that, and I personally am focusing on that. But I remember at a time there was a time where it was all about your heart health. It was all about your
Hmm.
cardiovascular,
Yep.
VO2 max, the
Hmm.
how far you could run, how all resting heart rate, etc.
Yeah.
What is it that we've learned that now the emphasis is just as much on strength, if not more?
Yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right. Your cardiovascular fitness matters a lot. So I would say your heart is a muscle, right? And it's one of the muscles that you need to keep strong, as well as, your quads and your all the rest of them. Um, so what is underappreciated is that your muscle is an organ and it's a powerful organ. And when you work your muscle, everything else works better. So for example, pre-diabetes and diabetes is rife in older age groups. Especially as we put on body fat, because the more body fat, especially internal body fat and liver fat and pancreatic fat that people have, the more likely they are to suffer from type 2 diabetes. Um, One thing that exercise does and muscle does is because it's metabolically active, when you consume food, and particular carbohydrates, the glucose goes into your bloodstream, and healthy muscle is very receptive to using glucose. So you're much more able to manage your blood glucose and much less likely to be metabolically sick. And the other thing about muscle is strength just helps everything, but also it contributes to bone strength and osteoporosis, osteopenia, basically weak bones. If you are an elderly person and you fall over and break your hip, you are likely to die within the next year. So keeping your bones strong is like really, really important as you get very old, because your bones will naturally get weaker unless you put work through your bones to constantly stimulate them to be strong.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that prompts a question for me because
sure.
I know my face may not give it away. And I am of the era where we grew up with drinking a glass of milk a day,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Like cow's milk. And
Yeah.
now I've lived through however many transitions of what milk we want to be drinking. Now there's almond milk, there's oat milk, there's soy milk.
Yeah.
So, Julianne, can you speak to the impact? I'm, personally interested as a woman, and I
Hmm.
would amass that this could go for regardless of how you identify or genetically built. That there is an impact on us removing that main source of calcium and not being responsible to replace it with something else. Can you speak to that at all? Have you any experience or
Yeah.
noticed that?
Yeah. So it appears that when we're younger, having adequate calcium does help you um, take your bone strength up to a certain point. Um, However, calcium is only one part of the equation. There are other parts of it. So, for example, you're dark-skinned, um, and one of the things that we know is that optimal vitamin D levels, which vitamin D comes from the sun, if you don't get enough sun in the summer or supplement if you need it, you don't absorb calcium. So absorbing calcium from the food, even if there's less calcium, is really important. So um, optimal vitamin D levels, getting the sun on your skin without block, without clothes, well, not covering up the whole skin in the summer, so you build up your vitamin D levels. If you have low vitamin D levels, then you supplement, for example. So optimal protein also helps you absorb calcium from your diet. Magnesium is really important for optimizing both of those working properly. So it's not just one thing. And then if you don't work your bones, it doesn't matter how much calcium you get, it's not going to be incorporated into your bones. So you have to look at the whole thing holistically. So,
Hmm.
I mean, like there are a lot of people who are lactose intolerant who don't drink milk throughout their lifetime. And there are other sources of calcium, like, for example, tofu is a good source of calcium, and you can get calcium from vegetables and all kinds of other places. So it's, yeah, having enough calcium, but also having all those other factors as well.
Yeah. And can you speak to some of the other factors that you emphasized earlier?
Yeah, so optimal vitamin D helps you absorb calcium. Protein in your diet helps you absorb calcium. Magnesium um, in your diet is really important for bone strength and making sure you use the calcium properly, and all the other nutrients. So, and also like bones, just to go back to bones aren't just made of calcium. Calcium is like the chalky stuff, but you actually need something to hold the bones together. And 50% of your bone structure is actually collagen protein. So it's not just calcium, and there's a whole lot of other minerals in your bone as well. So it's like looking at your diet as a whole, but also using your bones so that your bones are stimulated to grow and be strong.
Yeah. So it sounds like what you're telling me is I need to ask for more breaks from my manager so I can get outside and walk around and exercise and move my bones.
Yeah,
And
like just getting out, and
yeah,
it doesn't need to be a long time,
yeah,
depends on how much natural sun protection you've got. So the darker your skin, the more natural sun protection you've got. So you actually need to spend longer in the sun. Whereas me as a, from northern from Europe, like Scottish stock, with our pale skin, we're designed for very low sun environments, so we can pick up more sun in a short space of time. Yeah, 5 minutes. Most of my body exposed in the summer is probably enough for me, whereas somebody with darker skin might need 20 to 30 minutes.
Hmm.
I
There
can
was
get bored with
uh,
that.
there going back to just the extending your health span.
Hmm.
You talked about muscle and
Yeah.
like your physical strength
Hmm.
uh, and I want to ask you about being a power lifter in a moment, but just so we can keep track of them, there were two other things that you emphasize. One
I
of them
can't
was
remember
attitude.
what they
One of
were.
them was attitude.
Yeah, like the attitude of continuing to challenge yourself. So we know that like making your brain work keeps your brain functioning. The other thing is probably the one I'm least good at is socializing. So being social, I just saw the study today, like very long-lived people tend to be extroverts and tend to be very social and tend to have a community around them. So for me as an introvert, that's something I have to kind of work on, like I've got my husband, I've got my daughter living at home, I have my people at university. So it's just kind of pushing myself to keep being out there in the world, and not kind of sitting in front of my computer and working all the time. So the
Well,
social aspect is actually really important.
as you talk about that, it reminds me of the blue zone
Yeah,
approach. And
exactly.
I know that um, there's some statistical arguments about the concentrations of people, living for people that aren't familiar with blue zones. I imagine most folks are these days, but blue zones were places around the world that were identified as places where people lived extra long. There was a higher percentage of people are centenarians, and while some people called into question, uh, church records and how old people actually were, did they know when they were born, and other things like that. Um, the practices that were identified certainly are there's no controversy about those.
Mm-hmm.
And one I remember is having a cohort and having a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things about the commonality for this podcast is the people that we interview or have participated in landmark programs. And in your case, you actually led landmark programs for a period of time, and I'm just curious
Mm-hmm.
for you, um, how what you've put into practice, what you've ingrained, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
from leading programs, making a difference, how that comes into play in your approach to aging.
Mm. Just have to think about that. So I think, I mean, the things I got from Landmark, you don't kind of forget, it's like they just become part of your life. Um, like a lot of things were not easy, like being a program leader was not easy. I went through IFLP twice.
Hmm.
And then it was a challenge, but what I've learned is that just because it's a challenge doesn't mean you can't do it. And when things are challenging, it just means you don't yet know how to do it. And I think that's one thing that I kind of really got from that is like persistence and consistency and getting it wrong and learning and doing better. And I'm still doing that with my PhD. It's like
Hmm.
when, paper comes back full of like comments and crossings out and editings, and I feel like crying, it's like, okay, girl, just sit down, breathe, you got this. You know, you just haven't learned this yet. It's not like you can't do this. So that's one thing that I find. And just the whole idea of having a bigger problem. That's something I remember from Landmark is if you think you've got problems, take on a bigger problem.
Hmm.
Take on something that really matters in the world. Like the reason I did my PhD was because I heard about people that had used a certain dietary protocol and their symptoms of rheumatoid arthritis had really like diminished, and some of them were able to come off medication. And yet this protocol, it's the autoimmune diet protocol, had never been tested. And I thought to myself, like I'm smart enough, I've got the background, I've got the facility, I've got the support. If somebody else isn't going to do this study, like I should take this on because it would be a contribution. It would make a difference in the planet. I want to be able to leave this world thinking I've left something behind that is useful for people. That's kind of how my life is, and I think that's,
Well,
yeah.
I, I think that that is almost self-evident.
Hmm.
You know, the opportunity to have your life serve a purpose is available to anybody, regardless of any circumstance they may find themselves in. And um, do you think that having that purpose gives you the ability or capacity to push through the hard things? You know, you
Mm.
mentioned earlier about, going and lifting weights is hard.
Yes.
Pursuing a PhD at this age is hard. Being up
Yeah.
to something when your brain doesn't work the way it did 40 years ago is hard.
Yeah.
Um, what do you have to say about that?
Uh, yeah, just I don't know. I mean, it's probably a bit of personality as well. It's like I kind of refuse to give up if I
Mm.
can see that I can get there. But there have been things that I've given up in the past because I'm no longer interested, but that's different. Um, yeah, I don't know, just persistence.
Well, when you say persistence, we talk about, well, persistence can take a lot of forms. Persistence can just be a personality trait where you just don't give up, you don't quit, and you don't take no for an answer.
Hmm.
But I suspect what you're talking about is a little more of, it's invented. It's a place you've created for yourself.
Yeah, there are some places where you go, I, how would I say it? Is like, I will continue to make this happen no matter what, even though it's hard. Like right now, my finishing off my PhD is just seems very hard because I could just see screeds of writing and concentration. And, after about 5 hours writing, it was like, oh, my brain. Um, yeah, but it's like that no matter what, I will get there. It's like no matter what, I will get through my workout because that's what my coach has given me to do.
Hmm.
And so I will do everything on my program this week unless it's physically impossible. Um,
One of the
yeah, it's just that,
Julianne,
yeah.
one of the myths I'll debunk right now that people have sometimes of graduates of the Landmark Forum is that we're now these unstoppable, unleashed, human beings out there just tackling the world, getting it all done, and right. And
Yeah.
my experience and some of what I've heard you say is it's not that like quitting is off the table or like we never experience that anymore. And
Mm-hmm.
it's almost
Mm.
as if we now have a sister or cousin conversation called like keep going, or this is what I gave my word to, or right, like something else that we can choose to engage with, distinct from the quitting, it's too hard, I gotta give up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering because I'm really enrolled in how hard a PhD is, right? So you've got me enrolled in that, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering, is there another area or an example in your life that you can share to give us a demonstration, maybe with your powerlifting, or in the community, right, of that you're a part of now, where you notice that distinction there in how you be as a graduate versus someone else?
Uh, I think one of the things I'm not sure. I don't know, but one thing I try and do is reset, like put the past behind me and start again. like that's really one thing I got from Landmark is not having the past affect your future. Like just because I couldn't do that, or just because I feel really flat and it's really hard, it doesn't mean that I need to let that affect my work or my focus. It's like, I call it a reset. Allow yourself a bit of self-indulgence and feel unhappy. Give yourself a few moments to break. Yes, I didn't do that as well as I could. Now reset and go into the future and keep living into your commitment versus being upset by what's happened in the past. But being upset is okay. It's just like, don't indulge in that and don't have it keep being in your future. That makes
Mm,
sense.
Yeah.
totally makes sense.
Really good.
Um, I have there's something that I think maybe there for people that are listening to you right now. You started powerlifting in your 60s, and
50s actually, but
okay,
yeah,
thank you.
late
Um,
50s.
late 50s, but certainly past the age that most people become an athlete.
Mhm.
Um, and there may be people that are listening to this and they're thinking, well, that's great. She's got this special gift. I looked at the photo on the thing. She's got, look how strong her legs are, whatever. Um, I don't have that, right? And um, that's not your message. Your message isn't like there's. So, what would you say to somebody who would like to start something, and maybe they haven't been an athlete, and maybe they are in their late 60s, maybe they're even in their 70s right now,
Yeah.
that they want to start? Like, what is your advice? What is your coaching for them if they don't have, some past athletic background to, kind of rekindle?
Yeah. Well, I mean, basically that's where I was. I mean, I was on and off to the gym, and then I got a job working in a CrossFit gym and as a nutritionist. And then I thought I better start doing some CrossFit. And that was when I was 49. So that's when I kind of re-entered going back into exercise, or actually started for the first time doing proper exercise, as an adult rather than on and off gym and riding my bike around. Um, I think start slow. Like one of the biggest things is people go full tilt and then they get injured. So
Mm,
you want to gradually build up, because everything in your body is designed, if you haven't been exercised, is designed to be sedentary. So your muscles aren't particularly strong, your tendons and joints aren't particularly strong, and you need to build up all of those gradually. So have a program whereby you short, not too heavy, enough rest in between so you recover properly, and you just gradually build it up a little bit and a little bit and a little bit. I mean, that's basically what happens. And you get stronger, your joints get stronger, your tendons get stronger, your muscles get stronger, your recovery is better. Yeah, so it's just start slow, start small, start where you're at. Don't expect big things to happen. And the other thing I would say about a lot of people wait think they have to wait till they get motivation to start something. Motivation is completely overrated. Completely overrated. You might have a spark of motivation, like you come out of Landmark or whatever, and you got all these fantastic ideas about how you're going to change the world and change yourself. But what actually makes a difference is discipline and consistency.
mm.
And
Well,
yeah, so
it, it,
start and be disciplined and consistent and just keep going, no matter whether you feel like it or not.
I think that's really powerful. There is, just to share from my perspective, was a, I was a collegiate athlete. I was a wrestler. Um, you know, arguably one of the hardest sports, was, successful at it, and just always tried to maintain, over the course of my life. And I never really had to be motivated to go to the gym, to do any kind of workout, whatever it might be. And I noticed when I got to, my later 50s, I suddenly had this like, I don't wanna. Um, and that I don't wanna, I'm just seeing if you agree with this, but that I don't wanna is not based on anything other than not being responsible for you have the body that you have now. Like
Yeah,
part of the package of working out and continuing to exercise as you get older is you got to take into account your body is going to say, I don't feel like it more than it used to.
yeah, everything is not going to feel like it more than it used to. Working your brain is not going to feel like it anymore. It's yeah, and procrastination is a symptom of I don't wanna. It looks too hard. I don't wanna. Let's just do something else because my brain is wired for laziness. People's
Mm,
brains are basically wired for laziness. That's why we park within the closest we can to the supermarket doors, why
Mm,
we get takeouts and not cook,
mm,
why we use ChatGPT instead of thinking for ourselves. Because
mm,
our we're wired for survival, and survival is being lazy. So we can actually do as little as we can and keep, ourselves functioning and have food and everything. So if we just go, well, we're wired differently, we have to go against our wiring. That's unfortunate, but it's just how it is.
mm,
I think there's a missing ingredient here. Um, I have a daughter who's 16,
Hmm.
and I like to, I ski with her. We go canoeing and kayaking, and I'm an older parent, and I want to participate with her for as long as I possibly can. And I have every intention to be able to go hiking with her in the mountains in my 80s.
Hmm.
Um, but I'm very clear that that future, that goal is critical to me getting
Mm.
past the I don't wanna.
Absolutely. Having
Like,
that bigger picture focus in the future is
because
so.
I mean, I've just watched my brain, and it's like, I'll come home, it's late at night, and I could go to the gym, or I said I was going to go to the gym, and I just kind of like feel tired, and I've watched myself not go, and then at some point was just like, okay, well, that feeling of not wanting to is never going away anymore. It's here to stay.
Hmm.
And I have to have something else. And for me, it's like, being able to participate fully in my daughter's life for as long as I possibly can. And I just wonder if you have anything like that for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, like I see what old age does to people, and I just want to be as physically well as long as I possibly can because I feel good when I'm well. I feel good when my brain works. I feel good when I'm focused. So I want to keep maintaining that feeling of well-being. So that just keeps me going, like, yeah. And I've got to do some work to keep that feeling and to keep that, yeah, that well-being focus.
yeah.
Yeah.
It,
So it's not like, oh God, this is all hard and there's nothing in front of me. It's like, this is hard, but it's very rewarding having those results.
Hmm.
yeah. My wife, she's ever so slightly younger than me. And one of the things that she likes to do, where she works, they have these big tall trash cans, and she'll stack them up and then see how many trash cans she can jump over. Right. And she says she does it because she doesn't want to lose her physical dexterity. Right.
Yeah.
Like, who knows if
Yeah.
she has to like do like this. And I laugh because now I have this concern that, like, what if I'm hanging off the edge of a cliff because I had to run away from bad guys? And the only way to save myself is to hold my body up. And there is
Hmm.
this painful realization, as like sparse and made up as that circumstance is, it's like fomenting a crisis, or creating a game that has like the working out and the, like the getting your body in shape, not like be worth it for you, but as bad as it is, like we do need some incentives sometimes, and there's nothing wrong with
Yeah.
having an incentive, right?
Yeah. And like, I like clothes.
I was gonna say, what are some of
I
your games or reward systems?
I like that I can still fit the same clothes as I wore when I was in my 20s. You know, like I am the same, it's slightly different shape, but pretty much the same weight. I got more muscle now. Um, you know, my husband likes the fact that I've got a good body. You know, I get people like admiring me. There are a lot of positives that seem very selfish, but that's cool. You know, I get admiration for being strong. I get guys coming up and people at the gym like, you're deadlifting 120 kilos and you are this tiny itsy bitsy thing. Yeah.
I bet it also has people though think twice about messing with you on the street, right?
Yeah,
As a
people
female, I
say
know I
that.
think
It's like,
about that as well. I'm tiny.
you
I'm
know,
5'3".
well, I'm 5'1", so no, I get more like I would never have picked you as a powerlifter because when you got clothes on, it doesn't seem obvious that you've got muscles. Other than,
Yeah.
you know, occasionally you get like, oh man, you're you've got a really good butt. I get that at some point. Yeah, because I've got muscles there, mate.
Yeah. Free
It's
action, maximum medium
much
intensity.
more shape than it used to be when I was younger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, pardon the pun, but that might be a good place for us to end on.
Yeah, I noticed there's quite a
Uh,
few conversations about nutrition. I don't know if you want me to talk about that at all.
well, let's talk about that a little bit before we wrap up. So one of the things that um there's a distinction between a dietitian and a nutritionist
Hmm.
that I realized until we started talking, I didn't have I couldn't identify what that is. But
Hmm.
could you draw a distinction between those two things for people?
So dietitian generally has 3 to 6 years training. Often they have postgrad or master's degree, and then they're mentored and they're supervised to clinically work in a clinical aspect with people on their diet and nutrition. And they often work in hospitals and clinically with people with disease processes. A nutritionist is can be anything from somebody who's done a weekend course to somebody who's done a degree. In New Zealand, we have registered nutritionists. So there are people like myself who have done degree level or postgrad level, have done a similar type mentoring process that dietitians do, and tend to specialize in a particular area. So they might go into academics, they might go into communication, research, teaching, or clinical work. So I'm registered for nutrition communication and clinical practice. So I'm registered, which is, you know, a 2-year process that you go through, and then you have to keep up training and learning to stay there.
Well, as a nutritionist, between well, our lifetime, we've all lived in the late 20th century, early 21st century. A lot has been learned about nutrition. A lot has been learned about um, how much truth there is to you are what you eat.
Hmm.
Um, what would you say are the some of the key findings or scientific breakthroughs that are making the biggest difference for as far as people being able to impact their own longevity and well-being via nutrition?
Hmm. Um, to be honest, it's going back to basics.
Hmm.
The average American consumes 60% of their diet from ultra-processed foods, and ultra-processed foods comprise of added fats and oils, sugar, and highly refined carbohydrates. You think of donuts, cookies, cakes, biscuits, bakery products, pretzels, the whole shebang. Like those three foods make up 60% of our diet. They're very low in nutrients, if not, sugar has none. Um, it's going back to whole food. So I see there are components. So having adequate macronutrients, so optimal protein, whole food carbohydrates, whole food fats.
And
Ideally,
when you say, sorry, Julianne, when you say whole food, could you just
mhm,
distinguish what you're referring to there?
yeah, low human interference.
Hmm.
So if you're on a farm and you pick it and you kill it, and you take it straight off the whatever tree, pick it out of the ground, eggs, um, animals, if you eat animals, without interfering with them in any way, and then take them to your kitchen and cook them, that's low human interference foods. If we have most of our diet from low human interference foods with the optimal amount of protein, carbs, and fats for your body size, and the optimal amount of calories, and something that covers all your micronutrients, your vitamins, minerals, fatty acids, you're going to go a long way to having a really healthy diet.
Hmm.
And it doesn't matter kind of what history you've got, whether it's Mediterranean, whether it's sort of a paleo style diet, whether it's your ancestral diet. If you go to any ancestral diet, you're basically looking at a low human interference food
Hmm.
diet. And that's the basics of a good diet.
One of the things when I was a wrestler is we, cut weight to, you know,
Yeah.
make weight for a tournament. And,
Hmm.
high school students, we did some pretty dumb things. But, often it was just like kind of a lot of exercise with very, very low calories to try and just
Mm.
kind of very quickly make a weight.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I've always personally just eaten what I crave,
Hmm.
avoiding. uh, I mean, I've eat plenty of processed food in my life, but avoiding it for the most part.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm just curious if your body craving something is telling you anything.
I think it can be telling you that you're missing nutrients, but the food that you crave is not necessarily the food that you need,
Sure.
because there are psychological aspects to craving.
Hmm.
And that's to do with hyperpalatability that is built into highly processed foods that
To
make
sell
us
it.
want to eat them more.
Yeah.
So they sell more. They have scientists going, is it just the right amount of salt? Is it just the right amount of sugar? Is it the right amount of flavor, the right amount of texture, the right amount of crunch? So that they're designed to make you eat them more. So I would say if in your environment you only have unprocessed foods, and then you crave any one of those, that might be more a symptom that that food is right for you. Like if I don't have vegetables, like I travel, I eat a lot of veggies because I really like them, but if I travel and I eat out, they don't put as many veggies on my plate as I used to, and I get such a craving for fresh veggies. It's
Hmm.
ridiculous.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, we could go on and on and on and
Hmm.
on, and I'm even inclined to invite you back to just have a conversation about nutrition, period, and have a conversation just about that if you're open to that.
Hmm.
Um, but before we get to that, and just to kind of complete this conversation, uh, there's a question we often ask people that we interview, um, which is, we're all one day not going to be here.
Hmm.
We talked about the 20th century, 21st century, but the 22nd century, none of us will be here, and nobody's listening to this, as around the time we're recording it, we'll actually be here.
Hmm.
What do you want people to say about you when you're no longer here?
That's a good question that I've never thought about. Just, I don't know, that I left something useful behind, I
Hmm.
guess.
Hmm.
Something that other people can build on. Like if you get part of the reason I did the PhD was like because it's a PhD by publication, so I've got like 5. I've already got 1 published. I've got 4 more going. Is like scientifically, there's something that will hopefully somebody will look back in the future and go, oh, that's an interesting study. I could build on that.
Mhm.
So yeah, something that can be a building block for something else.
That's great. That's great. Well, Julianne, it's really been a pleasure. Really, really been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Landmark Difference Makers. If you're inspired by what you heard and you want to learn more about Landmark's programs or explore upcoming episodes, visit landmarkforumnews.com to find resources, event details, and more stories of people making extraordinary impact around the globe. If you are already a part of the Landmark community, check out the Landmark subscription, designed to provide ongoing support in creating a life you love. Visit landmarkworldwide.com to learn more. Until next time, keep creating, keep contributing, and keep making a difference.